It's on the way right now, everybody. More and more fourth stimulus payments have been approved. Congress is going to take huge action this week to establish new financial assistance programs, and millions of Social Security, SSI, SSDI, and RRB beneficiaries can expect to receive new stimulus payments. States have announced their action plan to address the rising cost of living that so many people are facing. President Biden has also made announcements on how the White House plans to further lower prices for the American people.
This means taking health care to the people, often the hardest to reach and often left out, and the most medically underserved. So I urge President Biden to sign this bill into law without delay to improve health outcomes across the board and make a positive difference in people's lives. Thank you, and I yield back.
And while U.S. gas prices have come down from the highs seen this summer, they are still clearly weighing on President Biden, who today repeated demands for oil companies to charge less. During a meeting of the White House Competition Council, Joe Biden said last month, the price of oil worldwide is down, and we haven't seen the lower prices reflected at the pump. Meanwhile, oil and gas companies are still making record profits and billions of dollars more in profits. And according to the AAA, U.S. oil futures fell 9.2% in August. Gas prices during the same month were also down, dipping to 9.2%. As Biden noted in his speech, gas prices across the country remain uneven. They are substantially higher in western states due to a lack of refining capacity. Biden told reporters, "My message is simple. To the companies running gas stations and send these prices, bring down the prices you're charging at the pump to reflect the cost you pay for the product." Biden's words echo comments he made earlier this year as average U.S. gas prices surged, hitting more than $5 a gallon in June. The White House expanded considerable effort to try and reverse this trend, including massive releases of stockpiled petroleum. Gas prices have fallen since that peak by more than $1 on average, helped by the decline for international oil prices amid the impact of the crisis and speculation around the effects of a global economic slowdown. However, there are new signs that gas prices are bottoming out after they rose slightly last week. For Biden, that risks reviving gas prices as a political issue heading into the midterm elections, and around 600,000 people in Delaware have received the relief rebate checks from the state. The first round of checks went out to Delaware residents who filed a state tax return, and as many as 150,000 people are still waiting for these rebates to come. The finance secretary said that we estimate that the maximum amount left might be 150,000, and I think that's the high end, because remember, you had to be a Delaware resident on December 31st, 2021.
Chairman Merkley, Ranking Member Lummis, thank you for holding this hearing today on the Good Samaritan Remediation of Abandoned Hard Rock Mines Act. And I want to very much thank Senator Risch for your partnership and leadership on this critical issue. Across the country, old, abandoned hard rock mines leak heavy metals and other pollutants into waterways every day. We've certainly seen this with the Animas River and its travails in New Mexico. These mines, which produced metals like lead and gold, iron and silver, contributed vital materials to the industrial development of our nation over the last century. In fact, both my father and grandfather worked in this industry. But in some cases, the companies that operated these mines shut down, went bankrupt, or just disappeared, leaving behind mine sites that pollute our lands and waters. We should hold responsible parties accountable for pollution. In fact, any company that has a historical, legal, or financial relationship to a closed mine is required by law today to clean up that site, and that's appropriate. But there are literally tens of thousands of abandoned hard rock mine sites that are truly abandoned. No person, no company that was involved in the operation or the ownership of the mine still exists and can be held accountable for that site. These mines are just there, year after year, in some cases polluting our water and destroying habitat for fish and wildlife. Now, one factor that keeps unrelated third parties from voluntarily cleaning up these sites is that under federal law, liability for pollution cleanup attaches to any person or any entity that touches a pollution site for any purpose, even if that purpose is simply to clean it up. This means that organizations like Trout Unlimited, who you'll hear from later this morning, are unwilling to tackle mine site cleanup even when it's a major cause of fish habitat decline, because doing so could mean huge liability for pollution that they had no role in causing in the first place. Even state environmental departments often avoid cleaning up certain sites of abandoned mines because the liability risk is simply too great. So we need a new approach. The Good Samaritan Remediation of Abandoned Hard Rock Mines Act would create a pilot program to allow the EPA to issue no more than 15 Good Samaritan mine cleanup permits. These permits could only be issued to third parties unrelated to the mine, and the EPA would have the authority to approve or deny the applicant's cleanup plan. The permits would be subject to NEPA and other environmental laws, but would relieve the permit applicants from being legally liable for the pollution that they did not cause. This legislation has broad support, including state environment departments, tribes, mining companies, hunting and fishing groups, conservation groups.
And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Senator Lubmas, ranking member of the second subcommittee, for any opening remarks she would like to share.
Thank you, Chairman Merkley. It's great to be here with you and join with your committee, the CSWMEJRO committee. That is quite an alphabet soup. And lovely to be with Senator Heinrich, who is one of the sponsors of this legislation, as well as Jim Oxbury from the Western Governors Association. It's nice to see you again. This legislation and hearing is the culmination of efforts by a lot of members and outside support groups, including some of those represented here today by our witnesses. And so, again, Senator Heinrich, it's great to see you here today. Senator Risch is also co-sponsoring this important bipartisan legislation. It's a pragmatic solution to the challenge of approximately 550,000 abandoned mines across the U.S., costing an estimated $54 billion to remediate. And it's just amazing how long this has been going on, but it's time to get after some of these. While most of the sites don't pose environmental problems, drainage and runoff from some of these may pose a threat to surface or groundwater. So this bill creates a 7-year pilot permitting program to allow for 15 Good Samaritan remediation projects on federal, state, tribal, and private lands. And by resolving the liability issues that Senator Merkley mentioned that come under CERCLA and the Clean Water Act, we can expect additional help from new partners that will both protect human health and improve water and soil quality. We want to make sure that no good deed goes